Strap on the snowshoes and the skis, but this ain't for fun, this is war.
Discover a unique U.S. military base located in the thin air and deep snow of the California mountains.
Best job I ever had, right?
Hell yeah, dude.
Where Marines learn to fight up here, where it's not just about weapons, it's about skis and footballs and chainsaws.
Going's easy, stopping's hard.
And just as important,
I'm gonna speed it up a little bit, increase my downward pressure.
staying alive in extreme elements.
Better than some of the hotel rooms they put us up in.
A new meaning to Cold War is next.
Welcome to the U.S. Marine Corps' Mountain Warfare Training Center located right in California's High Sierra. But from this vantage point, we could be anywhere on the planet, from Afghanistan to the Russian Arctic to anywhere where the mountain itself could be one of the Marines' major adversaries.
We have come to this unique base for what the Marines call MTX 217, a training exercise that will help teach the Marines how to fight and survive in the extreme elements of mountain warfare.
This is the first real phase of it, where we take Marines that in many cases have been stationed by the coasts, never seen the snow before, never been on skis before, and we bring them up into this environment and we teach them how, again, from a very crawl, walk, run sort of mentality, how to really live and then thrive in this environment.
0 to 100.
Yeah, 0 to 100, absolutely.
The need to train in frigid, difficult terrain has never been more important. Many trouble spots in the Middle East, from Syria to Yemen, Iran to Afghanistan, are fringed by soaring peaks. Meanwhile, climate change has opened up large portions of the Arctic Circle once choked by ice to exploration and exploitation. Conflict may well follow. The Marines will need to be able to not only function, but succeed in such forbidding places.
The idea being that as Marines, we have to be America's 911 force in readiness, ready to fight in any climb or place, even if there's not a war going on there.
It's part of what the Marine Corps needs to be ready to do, in any kind of environment. So, our little slice of it is high altitude, mountainous, and snow-covered environments.
At any given time, there are about 500 uniformed men and women training here, not just from the Marines, but also Army, Navy, Air Force, allied nations too, Brits, Canadians, Germans.
The training center is also known as USMC Bridgeport for the small California town about 20 minutes away from here. It lies in the Toyabe National Forest just north of Yosemite, and virtually all of this is on public land. The base itself sits at about 6,800 feet in a small valley called Pickle Meadow, but the action takes place much higher up.
We're in the Snowcat, weaving through these twisting, steep mountain passes, going very slow to get where we're going, to the top of the mountain where they're doing this exercise. The Snowcat itself is basically halfway between a bus and a snowmobile. It'll get you there, but very slowly. You can only go about 15 miles an hour. We're finally here. This is Grouse Meadows. It's a tent city that's risen from the snow with a little bit of help from the Marine Corps.
We are now at about 8,000 feet, deep in the Sierra backcountry.
This is a little city.
It is actually unique in that it's on top of 9 feet of snow also, which is, I think, outside the norm for most cities. They learn to exist in the environment, learn to use skis, learn to understand how to conduct offensive and defensive operations or conduct combat service support in a cold weather or snow-covered environment.
Including instructors and logistical support teams, there are about 400 Marines on this particular exercise. The easy mistake to make is to assume these are all regular infantry folks. In fact, there are Marines of all stripes and specialties here. Yes, there is an elite fighting unit known as Force Recon, but there is also an entire battalion of combat engineers as well as an artillery battalion. There's even a group of soldiers from the United Arab Emirates, members of the Presidential Guard. These men have left the desert far behind. To prevent an outbreak of altitude sickness, the Marines spent a few days acclimating to the higher elevation. Then, the training begins in earnest.
Prior to leaving mountain exercise here, they're going to be versed in the basic skills of actually operating and moving through mountainous compartmentalized terrain.
Ah yes, moving up here means skiing. Of course, Marines are more accustomed to wading through waves to seize a beachhead or crawling through the sand to attack a foe in the desert. Many Marines may have never seen snow before, much less plowed through it on skis.
Just need to be faster on skis than you would be on snowshoes. They're never going to be very high-end skiers. But as long as they're moving faster than they would on snowshoes or post-holing through the snow, then that's the advantage that we need to get them to.
The key figures in the training center are the instructors, easily identifiable by their red hats. They start their students with the fundamentals of skiing, basic stances, ski placement, and moving with speed, all while wearing heavy packs and carrying weapons.
It is a challenge to teach someone who's never even seen snow to ski on snow and be proficient at it to a level where they can go down some of the mountains in this terrain. It takes a lot of one-on-one coaching and a lot of rehearsals, a lot of going up and down the hills constantly throughout the day just to get those reps in to get better at it.
The maneuvers they learn are basic, and so are the skis themselves.
These are the skis that you've seen the Marines skiing on here all day. They're a Asney brand ski. This model's been around probably since the 1950s. For many of us, this is kind of what our parents skied on as well. Old cable binding, a big toe strap to go over the toe of the boot, and the lever here to kind of lock it down as they step in, and it latches around the heel.
Why not use more up-to-date models? Well, it's all about inner service functionality, they say. These old planks are used throughout the military.
Throughout a Marine's career, wherever he's training, he may see the similar ski, and it's not going to be foreign to him.
It's not just the skis. That boot technology also goes back several decades.
Great for keeping your feet warm, but not as good at maintaining control over the skis.
The good news is the Pentagon has scheduled delivery of some more modern gear to the Marine Corps. Skiing on old-fashioned equipment is hard enough. These Marines need to also learn how to ski while carrying heavy loads.
They're skiing with what we would call the assault load. All right, it's nothing more than their main ruck pack, probably weighing about 35, 40 pounds. But it has the basics of what they would need to go out and conduct, let's say, a patrol, during daytime, nighttime hours.
Marines need to be ready for every circumstance, which means training with a heavy loaded combat pack as well.
So that's more what the Marine needs to sustain himself out here, for the week. It's going to go more in depth as far as having all his warming layers, his chow, his water, stove kit and whatnot. Combat load, you're looking at, upwards 55, 65 pounds.
Needless to say, it doesn't always look graceful.
I'm from the South, so it's a little shocker for me. Learned how to ski, which was weird for me. I never skied before, so it's quite a challenge for me. A hard thing for me is getting that stop. Going is easy. Stopping's hard.
For me, the most challenging thing is learning how to ski. I've been falling all over the place.
Sometimes it's more than just embarrassing.
Then my knee just buckled in and just lost all strength, and a massive shooting pain come up through it, and couldn't stand back up, so the docs took me back down on the sled.
That Marine suffered a torn knee ligament. Getting hurt is part of the bargain when you sign up, but this wasn't on the recruiting poster.
I figure, hey, I don't have to run on the skis as much if I can throw the ball.
Getting comfortable on skis in unusual fashion, next on Winter Warfare. We've come to the U.S. Marine Corps' Mountain Warfare Training Center in California's Sierra Nevada mountain range. Here, Marines are trained to fight, maneuver, and survive in high altitude and frigid conditions. Just to give you a very visual idea of where we are, that big spiky peak right there,
16 miles due south of me is Tower Peak. That is the northern edge of Yosemite National Park.
This is deep backcountry with a snowpack 9 feet high. Mobility is difficult, it may be bitter cold, but when the Marines are working this hard, they can also work up a sweat. When that sweat freezes, hypothermia can set in.
Out here, you have to drop layers because at times we're gonna be working, so that's gonna build up your heat. So what you have to do is called comfortably cool, which right now, if you see, I'm only wearing just a light grid fleece weather because we're gonna be working. So our body heat keeps us warm.
At times, the snow is so deep or the incline so steep that human power alone won't get the job done. When that happens, the Marines use a technique called ski joring. In Norway, ski joring is a sport, usually involves a skier being pulled by dogs or horses. In the Marines, they use a snowcat.
You get up to 20 Marines on the back of this line that's hooked up to a tracked vehicle. If you're gonna take the tracked vehicle up to the top of the hill anyways, you might as well just basically water ski all these guys behind you.
Just put one arm here, the other arm on my wrist, and just relax.
In some certain cases, snowshoes are actually better than skis. I'm standing on top of a lot of powder. You see the cross section on top of the barn? That is just the top layer. If I wasn't wearing these, I would sink right in.
In this terrain, skis will get a Marine from point A to point B much faster than snowshoes. But when it comes to small unit combat, that isn't always true. Once they find themselves in a firefight, the Marines are trained to get on those snowshoes and maximize their mobility.
So you use the skis to get to the enemy, the snowshoes for the actual fight.
The Marines are trained to fight with whatever is strapped to their feet, of course, but should they need to engage the enemy while wearing skis? Well, the instructors have that covered. There are 3 firing positions. Number 1,
the standing position. And the big difference between what they're normally used to, shooting on a range, is that they're actually cocking their skis out to keep them from kind of sliding back down the hill as they're shooting. The kneeling position, same thing. They're just a little bit more uncomfortable, but a means of not ditching your skis, still being able to shoot and move in a snow-covered environment. And then ultimately the prone position, just coming forward off of the skis, skis kind of splayed out, and being able to engage targets once again in the snow without having to remove the snowshoes or the skis that they're shooting from.
Here too, the environment will affect the Marines' targeting proficiency.
Definitely, if the cold weather itself isn't affecting the weapon system and stuff like that, the ammunition, then cold fingers is a factor. Just something they got to learn a fine balance of what works while still accomplishing the task at hand.
Speaking of balance, there is one method the Marines use to enhance the comfort on these skis that seems awful clumsy and even unmilitary.
Getting out there throwing a football around is just one of those progressions that we use from time to time to kind of reinforce the basics of maintaining yourself up on the skis without falling. Typically, when they first start out, they're falling over, they're still stumbling and stuff. But after just 30 minutes throwing around the football, you can see them kind of gaining confidence in their ability to stay upright and not face plant quite as much.
Even more than football, capture the flag gets the Marines used to moving fast in the open snow. Up Next on Winter Warfare, how the Marines live up on Grouse Meadow when the skis come off.
Well, it's cold, so it doesn't taste very good.
We are boiling snow so that we don't die when we eat it because it's got a lot of bacteria in it.
And survival techniques for this harsh, unforgiving environment.
In an incident that an avalanche does come down, there's only a certain amount of window that we can get that Marine out alive.
The Mountain Warfare Training Center dates all the way back to the Korean War. At the infamous Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, surrounded Marines fell by the thousands to bitter temperatures and mountainous terrain. In order to prevent a repeat of that defeat, the Bridgeport base was established. Its remote location and Spartan comforts earned it the nickname Fort Bleak. All these years later, the Corps mission remains to indoctrinate Marines to withstand the chill, thin air, and difficult fighting landscape of the mountains. The center also has very different gear on its supply lists. This is what the Marines call the rope room, a two-story warehouse filled with thousands of pairs of boots, ice axes, carabiners, GPS equipment, skis, and yep, rope. Lots of it. What's this? Cold weather, extreme cold weather boot sock. Not just cold weather boots, so. Look at this one, it says Happy Jacket. Gotta get one of those. Yeah, it's warm. USMC Bridgeport has another spot you won't find on other military bases: actual stables. There are 65 pack animals, horses and mules, here on the base to move equipment the same way you would in the real world. These are wild Mustangs broken right here at Bridgeport. So as difficult as it might be up there on the summit, the Marines who tame these animals may have the most dangerous job on the base. Make no mistake, life up in Grouse Meadows is plenty tough. Immense snowpack only makes things harder on these trainees. You know, it wasn't that long ago where California was under an extreme drought, most of the state, but here I am standing in the middle of 9 feet of snowpack. But even surrounded by all of this water, it is very easy to dehydrate in all of this. That's why there's a specific place where you pee and a specific place where you mine snow. At this altitude and level of activity, the Marines are expected to drink lots of water every day, a time-consuming process.
We are boiling snow so that we don't die when we eat it because it's got a lot of bacteria in it.
It takes about 30 minutes to just get one of these pots ready to drink. That's why there are logistical support Marines here to do that job.
So you're doing this all day long?
5 hours a day.
The requirements are just as high when it comes to food.
Caloric intake out here in a cold weather environment, you know, they need to be pushing upwards, 4,000 calories, versus 2,000 or so that we'd normally be having them push there during the summertime. We teach them to think of their body as a furnace, right? And you got to keep feeding the fire, otherwise you're going to get cold. The chances of getting hypothermic or having frostbite and stuff like that, just increases.
These trainees eat MREs, meals ready to eat. They have an iffy reputation across the military, but the ones up on Grouse Meadow are surprisingly good.
What, are you kidding me? This that's an excellent idea. Look at this. It's like huevos rancheros in the middle of...
It even has hot sauce.
Oh my, you gotta be kidding me. Is it Cholula?
No, it's just, here you go. Some hot sauce.
I can't believe we're eating a hot breakfast. It's spicy.
Of course, not every single Marine is going to be pleased.
Well, it's cold, so it doesn't taste very good. And it's hard, so it ain't that good.
There are options for picky eaters.
This is the PX. You can unzip this tent. How you going, guys? You're Brandon, right?
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you.
I'm Dave. So I've got $10 burning a hole in my pocket.
All right.
What do you sell here?
We sell everything right in the rain pads, gloves, Jetboil fuel. We got Arizona tea, we have ramen noodles, we have chunky soup.
It just makes it feel like home.
Yeah, it makes it feel a lot better.
So you take PayPal, Apple Pay, Bitcoin?
No, we just take cash.
Cash, that's it.
Cash, that's
Okay.
it. If it's green, it's good.
All the proceeds from the sales on this mountaintop general store go to fund Marine bases overseas.
Let's get a one of these s'mores Pop-Tart. Yeah.
Right. So that's $1.
$1.
$1. At those prices, the MREs don't stand a chance.
Hey, he's right. It does make you feel better.
Up next on Winter Warfare, lessons in tactical survival.
Trying to evade the enemy, and you're trying to survive at the same time.
The Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, where jarheads and leathernecks get unique instruction for fighting and survival in thin air and wintry weather.
In this turbulent world, conflicts come and go. Enemies come and go too, but the one constant, the one thing you can bet on is snow-capped mountains and the human desire to survive.
Training is hardly one smooth downhill ride, but after enough time on the skis, even the most inexperienced Marines begin to get the hang of it.
I was shredding the gnar. It's important to remember this isn't just skiing, but it is tactical skiing. So that means communication, that means the combat itself, and possibly living up here for the duration of the fight. What is one of the things that you see over and over again that just shocks them to the core?
So really, it's nothing that we can bring. It's truly the environment.
The catchphrase you hear so much around here is the environment is the enemy. At Bridgeport, survival training is just as important as combat training.
The wind specifically up here at Grouse Meadows really gets howling.
Marines at sea level are trained to dig defensive positions to block bullets and shells, but in the mountains, the focus is on keeping warm.
They've established this kind of field fortification to get away from the wind, away from the weather.
These snow forts are a great place to stay hydrated, but water isn't always a good thing in these temperatures. These Marines are taught to escape from a fall into an icy lake or river. To prepare for this drill, engineers blow a hole in the ice. Then, Marines defy human nature and jump into the freezing water. The key is to get that heavy pack out first. That is where their spare dry clothes are kept. The ski poles become a life-saving tool. The Marines have to summon the strength to drag himself out of the deep freeze. They only have a few minutes to work their way out of the water before hypothermia sets in. And then, at least in training, it's off for a quick nip of the hard stuff before changing.
To the Marine Corps.
After a chilling dip in the ice, a fire is a necessity. Simple in most cases, but not with 9 feet of snow on the ground. That requires special techniques.
Cotton balls and a tub of petroleum jelly, and you can make a whole lot of fire starters, right?
But cotton balls aren't standard issue gear, so sometimes Marines have to make do with what they can find.
Who wants to see me build a fire with a bone drill?
Gunny Jeremy Lambert finds a piece of juniper bark to use as kindling. He peels off the finger fibers from the wood, leaving only the best tinder. It takes longer, but preparation is crucial up here.
See all this dust and fine fibers rolling off it when I roll my hands together? What's that telling me? It's dry, right? And that's what we want.
The gunny cuts a small indentation on his fireboard to give the spindle a place to sit. Then he ties the spindle to the string of a bow.
Snow-covered environment. think we really need to be on our toes about what we're doing with our gear. If I just took this and I thought I had it, but I didn't, I dropped this thing in the snow, I think that'd be good? No.
So, stand like so, brace my fireboard with my foot, take my socket, put on the socket end of my drill, brace my hand up against my shin so it stays where I want it to, it'll stay true. And I'm gonna start going slow until I get that depression worn down. Nice, long, even strokes, right? Nice and easy till I see the smoke start coming good. Then I'm gonna speed it up a little bit, increase my downward pressure a little.
This friction creates sparks that catch on the kindling. Now comes the key moment. Will the fire catch or extinguish? Gunny Lambert blows on the smoldering bird's nest.
Okay? Like I said, preparation, preparation, preparation. Any questions?
In hostile territory, building a fire would draw enemy attention. How to stay warm overnight? Dig a T-trench.
So when you get up here, how do you know where to set up camp? It kind of looks all the same to me. I'm sure it looks very different to you.
Yeah, there's a number of things you can take into account. You need to take into account the environment itself, but you also need to think about the tactical situation you're in. And this is exactly where I would make myself a survival shelter. If I do decide to light a fire, I've got the branches of the pine tree that will disperse smoke. I don't want to give away my position.
So you're making a cheap, quick igloo here.
Not so much an igloo. It's going to be a trench.
What I'm noticing is this is not puffy white snow. This is very, very hard packed.
Often refer to it as Sierra cement.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's interesting, as a civilian, this all just looks like white snow, but you're thinking that you've got to camouflage this. It's not all white.
When I put the snow back up on the bank, I don't want it to be dirty snow, because dirty snow will stand out among clean snow. You're trying to evade the enemy, and you're trying to survive at the same time.
Essentially, that's what I'm digging is I'm digging a small grave for me to sleep in.
Hopefully not forever.
Most of the instructors up here would prefer to just dig a T-trench, lay out their isomat, and go to sleep.
Instead of in a heated tent.
Yeah, instead of a tent.
Marines are different than normal human beings.
With the trench dug out, next comes the barrier between the Marine and the snow. He places his isomat, that's a flexible insulation device, on the ground to provide a layer between him and the cold, wet snow. All that remains is the sleeping bag, and this isn't your average weekender's bag. If he does it right, he can sleep through a 40 below night in here.
This is perfect.
This is home.
This is home.
So you just lie down. Normally I'd go in the sleeping bag, but I have my boots on. You know what? That is comfortable, Gunny. It's actually better than some of the hotel rooms they put us up in.
After getting his instruction, the trainees put Gunny Dibel's techniques to use.
One of the things you need to consider is when air gets cold, it settles.
In order to let that settling air seep out, the Marines dig a cold hole.
The cold hole I have at the base of my feet, and we all know heat rises and cold sinks. So what this is designed is, when you're sitting here, your body heat warms the sides, and it pushes all the cold air down into this hole to keep yourself more warm.
If you did not dig a cold hole for your T-trench, it would be substantially colder at nighttime.
Even still, the Marine trainees take extra steps to keep warm.
So right here we have our happy booties to insulate your feet. And I like to keep a dry pair of wool socks on the inside. So at nighttime, your feet are extra warm. Then we have our happy bottoms. And it's just, all this gear is just basically like a wearable sleeping bag. I like to put it over my Gore-Tex before I go to bed, so that way I wake up already ready, because it's a very painful feeling when you have to put on cold gear. Sleeping under the stars in the snow coffin, that's a little different. Makes you appreciate a warm house a lot more.
Sleeping in the snow is one thing. Getting buried in it is something very different. What do you do when an avalanche hits?
Know your search area. Don't search areas that you don't have to search, all right? You're just wasting time at that point, and you're putting people's lives in danger.
Next on Winter Warfare. The Marine Mountain Warfare Training Center is a contradictory place, a base dedicated to practicing for war amid nature's glory. Training goes on all year round up here in the High Sierra backcountry, but it's in the winter when the environment really tests the trainees. It's a beautiful day today. The sun is out, blue skies, but it's easy to forget. The weather can turn on you at a moment's notice.
All right, one of the pro tips that we like to pass on to the Marines when they come up here, is just paying attention to your surroundings. If a storm front was coming in, we'd start to notice the jets passing overhead and those comm trails lingering, for most of the day. And that's just one of the little tips that kind of clues us in that, hey, within 24 hours, we're probably gonna have some weather rolling in.
That's because moisture in the air causes jet contrails to linger. At this elevation, that often means bad news. On the other hand, cloudless days are actually just as dangerous. That sun beating down on you from above, reflecting on you from below, can be punishing both on your skin and your eyes. We are both wearing sunglasses here, and that's not because we want to look cool.
Absolutely
it's
not.
Because we would be blind without them.
That's exactly right. The reflection off of the snow, the sun coming down, your irises would get sunburned pretty quick. So it's probably better that you have them on, because we have to yell at you if you don't have sunglasses on.
But the sun isn't always the enemy up here. Throw out a bunch of solar panels, and you're fueling the tent city.
We have solar panels set up. Each solar panel is able to provide up to 300 watts depending on the weather.
That's enough to run communications and navigation systems up here.
Hey, you're gonna cut it up into the snow, all right?
After nearly 2 weeks up at Grouse Meadow, the Marines are off to different training areas. They will work on communications between units, and they will do simulated war games as one side attacks the other. Of course, there's always an avalanche danger up here, but to Marines, they see it as an opportunity. They could set them off deliberately, weaponizing the avalanche. You can stop an opposing force in its tracks or bury it completely.
With some luck and a lot of TNT, hopefully we'll get a small slide to go up the top of the ridgeline.
The Marines prepped 20 pounds of high explosive to take to that blast point. There is only one way up to that ridgeline.
It's not going to be an easy movement. That top part of that hill is pretty steep.
Once up top, the demolition team sets up the charges.
Copy, 1 minute. Roger, 1 mic.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thanks for head off, dude. Look cool.
Yeah, you marked your territory, that's for sure.
But the Marines also practice finding someone buried in an avalanche.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bury this beacon back here in this area. We're training these guys on avalanches. They're going to do the entire search procedures that they've been taught. They're also going to be looking for the beacon, because the beacon is what we use up here during avalanches so that we can accurately find people in the snow once the avalanche has happened. Bodies get caught in what we call anchors, which is like trees, brushes, shrubs, so on and so forth. So I'm actually going to go bury this next to an anchor in the ground, like a tree or a shrub or something, so that they can come find it and actually initiate their entire search procedures.
In avalanche country, every Marine straps on one of these distress beacons. If this thing gets buried, it will start pinging out a location.
You wear them underneath your Gore-Tex because if this thing flies off you, if it's on the outside of your body, they're going to find the beacon. They're not going to find you, right?
Beacons that they're using, it'll give beeps, and on the screen it'll show a distance and a direction as to how far away the actual beacon is.
In an avalanche, a Marine unit will quickly break into squads, one for searching, one for digging out the buried Marine. Remember, they have to assume that they will be attacked even as they hunt for that buried comrade. Unfortunately, our gunny hid the beacon a little too well. It took far too long to discover.
The time you guys got here until you actually found the beacon was 10 minutes and 30 seconds. So the guy was underground for 10 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, brain damage possibly already starting to set in, the whole 9 yards. Know your search area. Don't search areas that you don't have to search. All right, you're just wasting time at that point. You're putting people's lives in danger. All right, go back over there, reset. I'm gonna rebury the beacon. You guys are gonna do it again.
By the time the Marines leave the mountains, they will be able to find that beacon in under 3 minutes, quickly enough to save a life.
In an incident that an avalanche does come down, there's only a certain amount of window that can get that Marine out alive.
Still ahead on winter warfare.
These guys have all dealt with practice putting stuff into the dirt, but they've never dealt with putting it into the snow.
Engineering the enemy. Here at the Marine Mountain Warfare Training Center in California, just getting from point A to point B is fraught with difficulty. A tracked vehicle is useful, but there's no guarantee of mobility, as we found out.
See this truck going down here? This is an emergency crew on their way to a jackknife vehicle just like ours, a Tucker Snowcat. There are no injuries in there, and we can't really get over there because the roads are blocked, but we can hear over the radio that they're going to have a tough time recovering this vehicle slipping and sliding on these mountain passes.
I'm in the Tucker with the Weather Channel.
Roger, yeah, I just need you to be aware that the route is blocked.
For over 90 minutes, we were stranded way up in the backcountry while they made that rescue.
They towed it out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, we were down for it. We had to wait for an hour.
That looks like that was it. That was the vehicle to actually jackknife. They towed it out of here just as we were crossing. Good thing, because there were five separate snowcats on the road at the same time.
Ours was an accidental stranding, but in combat, blocking these narrow passes is a tactical maneuver. Executing these barriers is another facet of training here at Bridgeport.
What it's going to do is basically teach them the steps for when they're dealing with an enemy environment, how they're going to actually prevent the enemy from either reaching a location or turn them into a place that we want them to go. These guys have all dealt with practice putting stuff into the dirt, but they've never dealt with putting it into the snow. So they got to learn how to adapt to that.
The entire area has come under attack recently, and not from Marines. The culprit is a tiny insect called a bark beetle. Its larvae strip the tree's exterior, and the adults chomp away from the inside. Climate change has allowed this pesky bugger to move into the Sierra. All the dead and weakened trees have made the area much more susceptible to wildfires. Adaptability is an important Marine concept. This is a good example. This exercise incorporates cutting down the blighted trees and eliminating that bark beetle.
So what we arranged is for environmentals and the forest group to come out. They actually identified which trees needed to have these removed. So we just lined up to match our training to meet with that.
Walk it around with the snowshoes. Make sure there's no snow wells. You're not going to fall in when you're cutting the tree. Have your exit route planned out for when the tree starts to fall.
Obviously, the trees are buried, 8 to 10 feet under snow. So they look like small trees out here, but in reality, they're pretty large.
We're setting up a log hurdle, which we have the enemy funneled in with our C-wire right here to my left and right, and it's just gonna basically funnel them into a position that we want them to be in. We want them to kind of disperse their forces. We want the better vantage point on each of our fighting positions.
After the Marines have finished taking the chainsaw and cutting down the trees, they're coming back here and they're getting ready to build those obstacles that a lot of the guys were talking about. So in this case, they need to shape that tree, get it to the right size for the log to match what they're trying to build.
Meanwhile, other Marines are getting their backs into digging a massive trench 2 meters down and 6 meters wide, creating a roadblock no vehicle could realistically pass.
I grew up from Nebraska, so I'm used to negative-degree weathers and 20, 30-foot snow drifts, and I've scooped a lot of snow in my life, but this is definitely the most snow I've ever scooped in my life.
With these defensive works in place, the Marines have set the conditions of the battle. Their opponent will only be able to move where they can, not necessarily where they want. After nearly a month on the mountain, the Marines on MTX 217, they'll go back to their more traditional duties. Many of these Marines won't ever have to cut down a tree in a combat situation or sleep in a snow cave or ski several kilometers to engage the enemy. But should the need arise to fight in freezing mountainous terrain, they'll be ready.
The day after the training, am I ready to go to Mountain X and fight?
Yes. Absolutely.
The Mountain Warfare Training Center teaches other useful things as well.
I would say being out here, just doing everything together from morning reveille to going to sleep at night in 4-man tents, sleeping right next to each other, cuddling, doing all that crazy stuff has really brought the whole team together.
The camaraderie has really improved because even being in the same company, we come from different platoons. We're really coming close, staying in 15-man tents and staying in 4-man tents. Some people we've never really actually hung out with outside of work or in work. So it's really, brought the unit cohesion together.
The goal isn't, hey, when you leave here, we want you to go to Mammoth and get a date. But there is an intangible quality as well that comes with training here in this sort of environment. I came through the training here as a corporal in January of 2000. To this day, like 16 years later, those intangibles are really what have stuck with me, more so than any necessary ability to ski.
This place is really a gem in the Marine Corps and in the Department of Defense. It's a special place, and we certainly want to keep the tradition alive and make sure that the Marine Corps is staying training here for another 65 years.